Gentlemen, I feel it's important to share something with you. It might be a little sensitive, but it could truly make a difference in your well-being. If you're finding yourself getting up several times during the night to urinate, if your flow isn't as strong as it used to be, or if you have that lingering feeling that you haven't fully emptied your bladder, please know that these aren't necessarily just signs of getting older. They could actually be indications that your prostate is quietly and seriously being affected by habits you're engaging in every day. I'm Dr. Anya Sharma, and I've dedicated over 30 years to caring for men just like yourself, husbands, fathers, veterans, retirees, men who assumed these changes were simply part of aging, when in reality, their prostates were desperately seeking attention. And more often than not, the underlying cause wasn't their age, but rather their daily routines, seemingly small and insignificant things that no one ever cautioned them about. Over time, these habits can quietly cause inflammation, swelling, and exhaustion of the prostate, eventually leading to a loss of control, where your bladder takes over. The tricky part is, the more you try to ignore the discomfort, the more pronounced it becomes. But today, that can all change. I'm going to reveal 3 unassuming habits that may be harming your prostate right now, and how you can put a stop to them. These adjustments are straightforward, they're natural, and they can bring tranquility back to your nights and renewed energy to your days. So please, stay with me, because what you're about to learn could give your body the chance to begin healing, starting tonight. Before we get started, if you haven't already, I encourage you to subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell, so you never miss out on crucial health advice designed specifically for men over 60. And if you find this video to be helpful, please type 1 in the comments below. If it doesn't quite hit the mark, type 0. Your feedback helps me make these messages even more relevant and useful for you. Let's dive into the first silent habit, one that might seem completely harmless, but actually places significant stress on your prostate over time. It's something many men do without even thinking, and it could be the very reason your symptoms keep getting worse. Habit number 1, holding your urine for too long. I can't even begin to tell you how many times I've sat across from a gentleman, usually in his mid-60s or older, who shares a similar story. Doctor, I don't know what's going on. I used to sleep through the entire night without issue. Now, I'm up 2 or 3 times to urinate, and when I do, it's just a slow trickle. I stand there waiting, sometimes even straining, and I still don't feel like I've completely emptied my bladder. They often attribute it to simply getting older, but here's what I always tell them. It's not just about age, it's about pressure, a type of internal pressure your body wasn't designed to handle. And you might be the one causing it. One of the most prevalent, yet often overlooked, habits I see in men over 60 is the tendency to hold their urine for extended periods. And I understand. You're out running errands, you're stuck in traffic, you're engrossed in a game, or perhaps you're just too tired to get up. So, you wait. You put it off. You tell yourself you can wait another 10 minutes, or until you get home, or until the commercial break. But your bladder doesn't see it that way. You see, your bladder is a muscle, and like any muscle, it's meant to expand and contract, not remain stretched out like a balloon on the verge of popping. Directly beneath it, nestled at the base, is your prostate. And the moment your bladder starts to overfill, it exerts pressure downward, directly onto that delicate, sensitive gland. Now, picture that, an overfilled bladder pressing down with considerable force onto a sponge. And that sponge, your prostate, is already encircling your urethra, the narrow tube that carries urine out of your body. So now, not only is your bladder being stretched beyond its capacity, but your prostate is also being compressed and irritated. If this happens occasionally, your body can usually recover, but if it becomes a daily habit, that's when the damage begins to accumulate. Over time, your prostate tissue responds to that repeated pressure by thickening. It swells, it loses its flexibility, and becomes more inflamed. You might not notice it at first, perhaps just a slight hesitation, or the need to strain a little. But eventually, that swelling starts to constrict your urethra, gradually slowing down your urine stream and creating the sensation that you never fully empty. Even worse, your bladder, exhausted from trying to push through that constricted pathway, starts to lose its strength. The whole system weakens, and that's when you realize something is amiss. I once had a patient named Ray, a 72-year-old retired engineer, sharp as a tack. He was waking up 4 times a night to urinate. Initially, he thought it was just a normal part of aging, but when it began to affect his sleep, his energy levels, and even his mood, he decided to come see me. When I inquired about his habits, he chuckled and said, "Yeah, I probably hold it too long. Always have. I don't like public restrooms." Ray had no idea that what he considered a minor quirk had been quietly working against him for years. We collaborated on developing new habits, responding to the urge when it first arose, rather than waiting until it became unbearable. And within just a few weeks, he was already experiencing positive changes, fewer nighttime awakenings, a stronger urine stream, and most importantly, a sense of relief, both physically and mentally. This might seem like a simple thing, but it's more significant than you might think. Every time you disregard your body's signals, you create tension where there should be ease. Your bladder isn't a storage tank. Your prostate isn't designed to withstand compression. And your comfort, your sleep, your overall well-being all depend on that system functioning in harmony. So, here's my advice to you. Start listening to your body again. Go when you feel the urge, not when you feel desperate. Establish a rhythm. Respect the signals, and you might be surprised at how quickly your prostate begins to settle down. Now, if holding urine is affecting your prostate from the front, what if I told you there's something behind it that's causing just as much harm? Something you probably haven't even noticed until it's too late. Let's talk about it. Habit number 2, ignoring constipation. Most men don't particularly enjoy discussing constipation, and I understand that. It's not exactly a topic you bring up during dinner conversation or mention on the golf course. But as a doctor who's spent decades helping men over 60 regain their health and well-being, I feel it's important to tell you this. Neglecting your bowel health is one of the worst things you can do for your prostate. I vividly remember one patient in particular. His name was Harold. He was 68, a retired firefighter, tough as nails. When he came to see me, his primary complaints revolved around urinary issues, a weak stream, frequent urges, and the feeling that he could never fully empty his bladder. He'd been told it was just age, and that perhaps it was time to consider medication or even surgery, but something didn't quite add up. So, I asked him a question that most doctors often overlook. How often do you have a bowel movement? He seemed a little embarrassed, and then admitted that it had been an ongoing issue for years. Doctor, sometimes it's every 2 or 3 days. Sometimes it's hard as a rock. I just assumed that's how it is when you get older. What Harold didn't realize, and what many men don't understand, is that your bowels and your prostate are located in very close proximity to each other. The lower portion of your colon, your rectum, sits directly behind your prostate. When that colon is filled with dry, compacted stool, it's not just uncomfortable, it's constantly pressing against the prostate, like a heavy brick pushing into a sponge. That kind of pressure isn't fleeting. It's there all day, every day, and your prostate feels it every second. But it's not just about the physical pressure. Constipation also causes inflammation. When stool remains in your colon for too long, toxins start to accumulate. The beneficial bacteria in your gut, the ones that help keep your immune system balanced, start to suffer, while the harmful bacteria begin to thrive. That imbalance triggers low-grade inflammation. And that inflammation doesn't stay confined to the colon. It spreads, affecting nearby tissues, including your prostate. Now, consider this. Your prostate, already under pressure from the front due to a full bladder, is now being squeezed from behind by your colon. Add inflammation to the mix, and you've created the perfect recipe for swelling, irritation, and dysfunction. And here's what makes it even worse. Most men don't realize they're constipated until it becomes a more significant issue. They think they're regular because they have a bowel movement every day. But if the stool is hard, dry, or difficult to pass, if you're straining or sitting for extended periods, you're constipated. Even incomplete emptying can silently cause pressure over time. The typical modern diet certainly doesn't help. So many men over 60 grew up on meat and potatoes, and today, it's often processed foods, white bread, cheese, and far too little fiber. Add an insufficient water intake, reduced physical activity, and medications that slow down digestion, and it's no wonder the system starts to become backed up. But here's the good news. This is something you can change, just like Harold did. I worked with him on making a few simple adjustments, incorporating cooked vegetables, a bowl of oatmeal in the morning, a couple of prunes in the evening, and sprinkling ground flaxseed on his meals. We increased his water intake and made sure he incorporated some movement into his day, even just a short walk around the block. Within 3 weeks, Harold wasn't just more regular, his urinary symptoms also began to improve. He came back and said, "Doctor, I didn't realize how interconnected everything was. I feel lighter, less pressure, and I'm sleeping better." That's what happens when the colon isn't crowding the prostate. The pressure eases, blood flow improves, inflammation decreases, and everything, the bladder, the urine stream, the sleep, starts to return to normal. You don't need a miracle. You need movement. You need hydration. You need fiber. And most of all, you need to stop pretending that your digestion doesn't matter, because for your prostate, it matters more than you can imagine. Now, I want you to consider this. If something as seemingly simple as constipation can physically compress your prostate and trigger inflammation, what happens when you add another invisible threat? One that accumulates quietly every day without you even realizing it, just by doing something that feels restful? That's what we're going to explore next, and believe me, it's one of the most dangerous habits of all. Habit number 3, sitting for extended periods without moving. Some of the most significant health risks aren't obvious or dramatic. They don't come with warning signs or sudden pain. They develop quietly, gradually, like a chair that feels a little too comfortable, or a couch that seems a little too inviting after dinner. Sitting, resting, relaxing, it sounds harmless, but for men over 60, the habit of sitting for prolonged periods without movement can quietly undermine your prostate health in ways you might never expect. I've witnessed it time and time again in my patients. Men who've dedicated their lives to hard work finally retire, only to exchange a lifetime of activity for hours spent at the kitchen table, in a recliner, or in the passenger seat of a car. They have good intentions, they're not being lazy. They're simply enjoying the slower pace of life. But the human body, especially the lower pelvic region, was never designed for prolonged stillness. One patient I'll never forget was Thomas. He was 71, a retired school principal, proud, disciplined, and quick-witted. But lately, he'd been feeling off, more pressure in his pelvis, more frequent nighttime urges to urinate, and increased fatigue in the mornings. When we discussed his daily routine, he described his typical day: morning coffee in his reading chair, a few hours at the computer, lunch at the table, followed by an afternoon nap, and perhaps some television in the evening. It sounded peaceful, but it was also too sedentary. Here's what I explained to him, and what I want you to understand. When you sit for hours without moving, blood flow to your pelvic region starts to slow down, circulation weakens, and your prostate, a small but vital gland nestled between your bladder and your rectum, relies on consistent circulation to remain healthy. When that flow is reduced, the tissue becomes starved for oxygen. Waste products accumulate. The lymphatic system, which is responsible for clearing out inflammation, becomes sluggish. Over time, the prostate becomes congested, swollen, and irritated, and you might not feel it all at once. It develops quietly, day after day. What feels like rest is actually a form of silent suffocation. The prostate, unlike your arms or legs, doesn't move on its own. It depends entirely on the surrounding muscles, your hips, your lower back, your thighs, to keep blood and fluid circulating through that area. When those muscles are still, everything stagnates. Thomas was surprised. No one had ever told him that sitting could affect his prostate. We talked about something I like to call movement snacks, short, simple bursts of activity throughout the day. You don't need to break a sweat. You don't need a gym membership. Just stand up every 30 to 45 minutes. Stretch. Walk to the mailbox. Swing your legs. Take a deep breath. Roll your shoulders. Move your hips. Remind your body that it's still alive. We developed a routine that he could realistically stick to. A few reminders on his phone, a walk after breakfast, taking phone calls while standing instead of sitting, gentle stretches during commercial breaks. The changes were subtle at first, but powerful. Within a few weeks, his sleep improved, his urgency to urinate decreased, and he felt more energetic in the mornings. He even appeared lighter in his movements. That's the hidden power of motion. You're not just benefiting your heart or your muscles, you're also supporting the deep, quiet areas of your body, areas like your prostate that rely on circulation and flow. You're clearing out waste products. You're delivering essential nutrients. You're creating space for healing. And that's what this entire message has been about. Your prostate isn't trying to make your life difficult, it's trying to adapt to your lifestyle. And if your habits are working against it, you'll experience the consequences, even if you don't immediately connect the dots. But here's the good news, now you know. You've learned about the 3 silent habits that gradually contribute to prostate enlargement. And, more importantly, you've learned that you have the power to change them. Now, in just a moment, I'm going to tie it all together, because understanding the problem is only half the battle. Next, I'll show you how to create a daily routine that gently reverses the damage and provides your body with the support it needs to heal naturally, steadily, and for the long term. Don't go anywhere. What comes next is the part most men never hear, and it could make all the difference. You're not powerless. Your prostate has the potential to heal. By now, you've heard about the 3 habits: holding your urine for too long, ignoring constipation, and sitting for hours without moving. They're not dramatic, they're not headline-worthy, but they're the kind of quiet, everyday patterns that, over time, can silently break down one of the most sensitive systems in a man's body. I've seen it in countless men, and I've also seen what happens when those same men take these habits seriously and begin to make even the smallest adjustments. Perhaps you recognized yourself in one of these stories. Maybe you're like Ray, who never realized that delaying bathroom breaks could be the reason for all those nighttime awakenings. Or perhaps you're more like Harold, who never gave constipation a second thought until he understood how much pressure it was putting on his prostate. Or maybe you're like Thomas, who thought he was simply enjoying his retirement, but didn't realize that his long periods of inactivity were slowly suffocating his body from the inside out. Whatever your story may be, I want to remind you of something important. Your body is listening. It responds to what you give it, or what you withhold. And the good news is that healing doesn't always require major, overwhelming changes. Sometimes, it just takes a willingness to pay attention, to respond sooner, to move a little more, to drink that extra glass of water, to pause and ask yourself, what does my body need right now? Your prostate isn't the enemy, it's a part of you. And like the rest of you, it's doing its best with what it's been given. If you provide it with care, patience, and the right kind of attention, it can return the favor. I've witnessed it happen time and time again. So, don't give up. You're not too old. It's not too late. Your health isn't behind you. It's still in your hands. And your next chapter can be stronger, more stable, and more comfortable than the one before. If you found this video helpful, please take a moment to give it a like. It really helps more men like you find this important information. Share it with a friend, a brother, or anyone in your life who might be silently struggling with prostate issues. I also welcome your thoughts in the comments below. Let me know what resonated with you, or what you'd like me to cover next. And if you'd like to support this channel and help me continue creating free, life-changing health content for men over 60, please consider making a small donation. Every little bit helps. Thank you for being here, for caring about your health, and for being part of this community.